From a man who killed more enemies than any soldier in Vietnam, to a man who killed an enemy sniper by firing a bullet directly through his rifle scope, to the man who made over 2,500 confirmed kills in a single war and was never once caught behind enemy lines. These are the 5 deadliest American snipers in US history, and their names deserve to be remembered. Chapter 1. Adelbert Waldron. Adelbert Waldron served 2 tours in Vietnam and came home with 109 confirmed kills, the highest confirmed sniper count of any American soldier in that war. But the shot that defined his entire career happened on a river in the Mekong Delta, and most people who know his name still can't fully explain how he made it. It is 1969. Waldron is riding on a patrol boat moving through the Mekong Delta when a Viet Cong sniper opens fire from the riverbank. The distance is extreme. The boat is moving. The target is partially concealed in a tree line. Every variable that makes a shot impossible is present simultaneously. Waldron raises his rifle. One shot. The sniper drops from the tree. The men on the boat don't fully understand what they just watched. A moving platform, an extreme distance, a partially obscured target, and Waldron had solved every problem in the time it took most men to identify there was a problem at all. He grew up in upstate New York, the son of a working-class family with no particular military background and nothing in his early life that suggested he would become the most lethal sniper the Vietnam War produced. What he had was an instinct for stillness, physical and mental, that no amount of training fully explains. Some men are built for patience. Waldron was built for impossible patience. 109 confirmed kills, 2 tours. He came home quietly and lived out his life without ceremony, without memoir, without any of the public recognition that his record arguably deserved. The army knew what it had in Adelbert Waldron. It just never bothered to tell anyone else. But what Waldron did on that river in the Mekong Delta was nothing compared to what the next man on this list did in the mountains of Korea, with a weapon that had no business making the shot he made. Chapter 2. Carlos Hathcock. Carlos Hathcock grew up hunting squirrels on a farm in Arkansas with a rifle his grandfather gave him. He became the most feared sniper in the Vietnam War, with 93 confirmed kills and a bounty of $30,000 on his head that an entire North Vietnamese army division was never able to collect. There is one mission from his service that military historians still argue about today. We will get to it. But first, you need to understand what kind of man volunteers to crawl through 3 miles of enemy-controlled jungle over 3 consecutive days just to reach a single target. It is 1967. Hathcock has been given a mission that his commanding officers consider nearly suicidal. A North Vietnamese general is operating from a heavily guarded compound deep in enemy territory. Getting close enough for a shot means crossing 3 miles of open jungle where enemy patrols are operating continuously. Any noise, any movement, any mistake at any point in the 3-day approach means immediate capture and certain death. Hathcock moves an inch at a time. He spends 3 days and 3 nights covering 3 miles of ground, eating rations in place, never standing, never making a sound, eliminating waste where he lies to avoid detection. He reaches his position. He takes his shot. The general goes down. He then crawls the 3 miles back out. But that is not the shot historians argue about. The shot historians argue about happened on a different mission, when Hathcock spotted an enemy sniper in the tree line who had been specifically sent to kill him. Both men raised their rifles simultaneously. Hathcock fired first. His bullet travelled down the barrel of the enemy's scope and entered through the lens, killing him instantly. The only way that shot is possible is if the enemy sniper was looking directly at Hathcock through his own scope at the precise moment Hathcock fired, which means Hathcock found him first and shot faster. The enemy had put a $30,000 bounty on his head, an enormous sum in wartime Vietnam, because they could not find him any other way. He operated so deep in enemy territory, so silently for so long, that they gave him a name, Long Trang, the white feather. A reference to the feather he wore in his bush hat, a deliberate provocation, a way of telling them he was there and they still couldn't stop him. They never collected that bounty. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Next week we cover 5 men who did something even more extreme than anything on this list. You won't want to miss it. Hathcock came home from Vietnam and spent years coaching the next generation of Marine snipers at Quantico, passing on everything he had learned in the jungle to men who would carry it forward. He died in 1999. The Marine Corps Scout sniper community still considers him the standard against which every sniper since is measured. But what Hathcock did over 3 days in the jungle was a test of patience. The next man on this list had no time for patience. He had about 3 seconds and he used all of them. Chapter 3. Chris Kyle. Chris Kyle served 4 tours in Iraq and came home as the most lethal sniper in American military history, with 160 confirmed kills and a reputation among Iraqi insurgents that made them call him the Devil of Ramadi. Before we get to his longest shot, you need to understand what it actually means to operate as a sniper in Fallujah in 2004, because the context makes everything else harder to believe. It is 2004. Fallujah is the most dangerous city in Iraq, a dense urban maze of concrete buildings, narrow alleys, and insurgents who have spent months preparing defensive positions specifically designed to kill American soldiers moving through streets. Kyle is providing overwatch from rooftops and windows across the city, covering Marine and Army units moving through those streets below him. He is not hunting, he is protecting. Every shot he takes is a decision made in a fraction of a second. Is this person a threat? Where are my people? What is behind the target? What happens if I miss? 160 times in 4 tours he made that decision correctly under conditions that most people cannot begin to imagine. His longest confirmed kill was 2,100 yards, just over a mile. The bullet travelled for over 2 seconds between the moment he fired and the moment it arrived. He had to calculate wind, distance, the rotation of the earth, and the movement of his target, all without the ability to correct if he was wrong. He was not wrong. Kyle grew up in Texas, the son of a Sunday school teacher and a deacon. He was a cowboy before he was a soldier, working ranches, riding rodeo, living a life that had nothing to do with war, until September 11th changed the calculation for him the way it did for a generation of American men. He came home from 4 tours and spent his remaining years trying to help veterans who had come home broken in ways that didn't show. He was killed in 2013 by a veteran he was trying to help, 38 years old, at a shooting range in Texas, doing exactly what he had always done, trying to take care of the people next to him. 160 confirmed kills, the most lethal sniper in American military history. And the way his story ends says more about who he was than any of the numbers. What Kyle did in Fallujah required precision under pressure that most men cannot sustain for an hour, let alone 4 tours. The next man on this list was precise under a completely different kind of pressure, the pressure of a war so cold and so brutal that the weapon itself kept freezing before he could use it. Chapter 4. Chuck Mawhinney. Chuck Mawhinney served 16 months in Vietnam and came home with 103 confirmed kills, the second highest sniper count of the Vietnam War. For over 20 years after he came home, nobody outside his immediate circle knew his name. He never told anyone what he had done. He went back to work in Oregon and lived quietly while his record sat classified in military archives. There is one night that defines his service in a way that no single daytime mission ever could. And the reason it defines him is not the number. It is what the number cost him to reach. It is 1969. Mawhinney is alone in a position overlooking a trail in the Vietnamese jungle when a North Vietnamese army platoon, 36 men, begins moving through his kill zone in single file. In the darkness, using a night vision scope that was barely functional by modern standards, Mawhinney makes a decision. He opens fire. In the next few minutes, he kills 16 enemy soldiers and wounds others before the platoon scatters into the jungle. 16 kills in a single engagement, alone, in the dark, with equipment that gave him maybe a marginal advantage over the men he was targeting. He was 20 years old. Mawhinney came from a small town in Oregon. He had grown up hunting in the forests of the Pacific Northwest. The same stillness, the same patience, the same ability to hold a position for hours without moving that Hathcock had developed in Arkansas. The environment produced the man before the Marine Corps ever got involved. He came home and said nothing, filed away what he had seen and done and gone back to his life with a discipline that the military never required of him because he required it of himself. His record was only widely publicised in 1991 when a fellow veteran mentioned it in a book 22 years after the fact. 103 confirmed kills, the second most lethal sniper in Vietnam. And a man who considered what he had done a private matter between himself and the war, not a story to be told. But if Mawhinney's story is about silence after the war, the last man on this list is about a silence during it. 20 days of complete silence, alone, in mountains his own side had given up on reaching. Chapter 5. Timothy Murphy. Timothy Murphy was a frontier rifleman from Pennsylvania who served in the Continental Army during the American Revolutionary War. He is credited with one of the most consequential sniper shots in American military history, a shot that may have changed the outcome of the Revolutionary War itself. Before we get to what he did at Saratoga, you need to understand what it means to make a 300-yard shot with an 18th century long rifle during an active battle. Because in 1777 that distance was considered effectively impossible under combat conditions. It is October 7th, 1777. The Battle of Saratoga, the turning point of the Revolutionary War, is in its final critical hours. British General Simon Fraser is rallying his troops on horseback, riding through the battle lines with a composure and authority that is visibly steadying the British forces and threatening to turn the momentum of the battle. American General Benedict Arnold, not yet a traitor, reportedly orders that Fraser must be stopped. Murphy climbs a tree. At approximately 300 yards, an almost unimaginable distance for the weapons of that era, Murphy fires 3 shots. The first 2 miss or wound. The third kills General Fraser. Fraser's death breaks the British momentum. The American forces hold. Within days, the British surrender at Saratoga, the victory that convinces France to enter the war as an American ally. Without French support, the Revolutionary War likely ends differently. One shot, or rather one of 3 shots, may have saved the American Revolution. Murphy was a frontiersman by background, a man raised in the wilderness of Pennsylvania who had spent his life developing the skills that 18th century survival required. He brought those skills to the Continental Army and applied them in a moment where the fate of a nation was genuinely in the balance. He lived to see the country he helped create grow into something beyond what anyone standing at Saratoga could have imagined. 5 men. 5 different wars. 5 shots, or in Murphy's case 3, that changed what was possible. From Waldron reading a moving target on a river in Vietnam, to Hathcock crawling 3 miles to reach a single general, to Kyle making a 2-second shot across a mile of Iraqi desert, to Mawhinney standing alone in the dark while 36 men walked into his position, to Murphy climbing a tree at Saratoga with a long rifle and the outcome of a revolution balanced on what happened next. Not one of them had ideal conditions. Not one of them had time to reconsider. Every single one of them made the shot that nobody else in that moment could make, and lived with what that meant for the rest of their lives. That is what made them the deadliest.